Welcome to the shores of Lake Mead, and welcome to Vegas Valley H2O, the only show dedicated to water in our desert community. I'm your host, John Castanino, and in this episode, we're talking about the things that matter to you, like ensuring the future of water delivery from here to your home or business. So, coming up, we'll discuss saving you money if disaster strikes. There are two new programs from the Las Vegas Valley Water District when it comes to leaks. Both are designed to keep your money in your pocket if an unexpected issue hits your property. Details ahead. Next, I'm sure you'd like to see more water in Lake Mead, wouldn't we all? Can a big pipeline be built from the Mississippi River to Nevada? We'll answer that. Plus, what if lake levels continue to drop in the coming years? Is your water supply secure? The answer, it is. And we're going to show you exactly how that's possible, even in extreme conditions. We're coming out of winter and warmer weather is arriving. Let's begin the show with everything you need to know about spring watering.
Yes, the springtime. A season for fresh starts, spring cleaning, and a change in seasonal watering restrictions. And we have the expert tips to help you be a water smart user this spring. Let's talk seasonal watering tips. Plants and trees don't need as much water as grass. Just 1 to 2 days a week does the trick. And since spring temps are still on the cooler side in the mornings and evenings, your landscape doesn't need extra water just yet. Try easing into a second watering day as it warms up. Your plants will thank you. Still got grass? You can water up to 3 days a week if needed for a total of 12 minutes on your assigned days. To save even more water, get cash for your grass. Replace your thirsty turf using the SNWA's Water Smart Landscapes rebate. Whether you do it yourself or hire a contractor, the Southern Nevada Water Authority will rebate residential properties, businesses, HOAs, and multifamily properties for grass taken out and replaced with desert landscaping. And as always, never water on Sundays. Next, while you're tackling spring cleaning, don't forget about your irrigation system. Check your irrigation clock to make sure it's working properly by doing a test run. Better yet, consider upgrading to a smart irrigation controller with an SNWA rebate coupon and make easy updates to your watering schedule from your mobile device. Inspect your landscape for cracked irrigation lines, clogged drip emitters, leaks, and misaligned sprinkler heads. A quick checkup now can help prevent water waste and avoid any unwanted finds. The springtime is also the perfect opportunity to start fresh new habits. And here's a habit that you can build. When there's rain in the forecast, turn off your irrigation system and take advantage of the free water coming from the sky. For more information on spring watering, visit snwa.com.
So for customers who have a leak at their home, but they may be struggling to repair it because of the cost, we have a couple of different programs that can help. The first one, which is going to be starting in January, is a leak repair assistance program for low-income customers. So if you qualify, you can contact one of 3 different entities we have partnered with, and all you have to do is reach out to them, and their contact information is at lvvwd.com, or you can call customer care. They will arrange the plumber, and they will take care of the repair in its entirety with no cost to you as a customer. Now, most people don't think about service line repairs, but if your house is 20 years or older, you should be, because if a service line breaks or even springs a leak, you're looking at thousands of dollars to repair it, and that's a lot more than most people can pay. So what we've done is partnered with American Water Resources to provide a very low-cost service line protection for Las Vegas Valley Water District customers. For $3.99 a month, you can sign up, and if your service line does fail, that will be completely covered. But that's not even the best part. For the first 50,000 people who sign up, the LVVWD will actually reimburse their first year's premium, so it's entirely free.
It's all the new construction. It's the casinos and golf courses. It's all California. Many believe those and several other myths are true about water resources in Southern Nevada. However, we do the research and have the facts. It's time to tap the truth. I'm Colby Pellegrino, the Deputy General Manager of Resources for the Southern Nevada Water Authority. Today's topic is, so what are we doing to bring more water to Las Vegas from places that have lots of water? Well, the Southern Nevada Water Authority has done quite a bit. Through the years, we've studied all sorts of different ideas, from small practical solutions to really large, grandiose things that would take decades, and billions of dollars to implement. What we've focused on are smaller projects with our partners on the Colorado River, such as our partnership with Metropolitan Water District of Southern California on the Pure Water Project. So Pure Water is taking water, wastewater that's discharged to the ocean, treating it and redistributing it to groundwater basins in Southern California, creating a new water resource that can then be pumped out of the ground. That water will be pumped out of the ground and used by Metropolitan Water District. And for the portion that SNWA funds, they will leave a like amount of their water in Lake Mead for us to use. We're also actively studying things like desalination in Mexico and brackish water desalination, and looking for other similar opportunities. But what we have to ensure is that any opportunity that we incorporate makes sense from a price standpoint for our customers. These alternative resources like desalination carry a price tag that's 6 to 10 times more than what we wholesale water for today. So it's important for us to look for these new resources and blend them into our portfolio when it makes sense. But we can't go after a large project on our own because we're such a small portion of the Colorado River. So by partnering with our other agencies like us in California, Mexico, and Arizona, we're able to bring in water that makes sense for this community in a way that also makes financial sense for this community. Also, I'll just pick on one project, for example, that we hear is bringing water in from the Mississippi River. What we don't realize as we sit here in the Colorado River is the Mississippi River is actually experiencing their own climate change impacts. There were significant portions of the Mississippi River where they were unable to have ships navigate, which is one of the major functions of that river from a nationwide economic standpoint, just because the flows were lower than they usually are. So yes, there's still a large volume of water, but it's not necessarily there for Southern Nevada to come grab. The Great Lakes heard talk of these water importation projects, and they actually signed a compact saying they would not agree to export any water. And if for some reason we ever were to get a major billions and billions of dollar project like that approved, the environmental compliance associated with it, the design work, the construction, you're not talking about something that can solve today's crisis. You're talking about something that would take decades and decades and decades, even with everyone on every level of government standing behind it, to get it constructed. If you'd like to learn more about many other water myths and the truth behind them, you can find us on YouTube at SNWA Video.
Hey, good morning everyone to a beautiful morning here at Lake Mead, where the lake levels, as many of you know or should know, the levels have dropped about 150 feet over the last 20 years or so. That bathtub ring in the background, it continues to get bigger as we're in this mega drought, permanent aridification of the West. And today we're here to explain why, even if you see the lake levels continue to drop, Southern Nevada's water supply is safe, it is secure because of the infrastructure that has been built at the lake, infrastructure that you can't see, but we're going to show you today. So to do it, we've got to take a little boat ride. Let's go. This is Kyle, and this is Katie, our captain for today. So we've moved about 3 miles to the middle of Lake Mead, and oh, I have a special guest here. This is Buck Osborne. He is the Director of Operations for the Las Vegas Valley Water District and the Southern Nevada Water Authority. Buck, thanks for taking the trip here with us.
My pleasure.
So tell us why we're in the middle of the lake. We're certainly not seeing what's underneath us, but what is underneath us 3 miles into the middle of Lake Mead?
So we are currently above the third intake straw, which is the feed for the water source that goes to our latest pumping station, L3PS.
And why was the third intake necessary?
So because of the reduced water level in the lake, we've had a 20-year drought. The people that run the organization saw a need for a third intake. Our first 2 intakes, the first one is very close to not being usable. The second is only 50 feet below that. So this third intake was necessary to ensure that water continues to flow to Southern Nevada and to Las Vegas.
So the lake elevation is about 1061
Correct.
as of this morning. And that's not the depth of the lake. A lot of people can get that confused. That is actual elevation. So we're at elevation 1061 at the top of the lake. The third intake, where is the top of the third intake elevation-wise?
Top of the third intake is at 875, elevation 875.
So quick math, that's about 180 feet-ish? I don't know, we'll put it on the screen here. So that's the operational depth that we have between the top of the lake and the top of the third intake. And I wanted to explain this a little bit. Again, we talked about elevation 1060 is not the depth of the lake. Also, the concept of the martini glass at Lake Mead, if you're not familiar with this. Okay, the surface level at 1060 right now, it's obviously wide. It's nice and wide, so we have more water at elevation 1060 than we do at, let's say, elevation 950 or at elevation 900. The farther that the lake level goes down, the surface area gets smaller and smaller and smaller. So while you think that that's a lot of operational wiggle room from the top of the water to the top of the third intake, it's actually not as much as you think. And Buck, tell me, we talked about this earlier, right? We've got the third intake. The top of it is at elevation 875.
Correct.
We're exploring the possibility to take that down a little bit.
That's correct. We're exploring lowering it another 40 feet.
It's all things to ensure that the water supply in Southern Nevada is viable. The construction of this thing had to be insane.
Yes, it was. It's very difficult to build in construction, regardless. But when you put the aspect of a tunnel and then a tunnel underwater, the safety factor is astronomical.
Yeah, and backing up a little bit again, seeing the need here, right? And anybody that's spent time at the lake, anybody that's watched the news about the drought out here, right? It was 20 years ago where essentially leaders at SNWA, they saw that bathtub ring starting to grow inch by inch and foot by foot to the point where they said there is a possibility where Southern Nevada may not be able to get water out of Lake Mead because of the location of our first 2 intakes, which we're going to go and take a look at shortly. But to have the foresight 20 years ago, how long was that construction process to get the third intake built from, let's say, proposal to when it actually was done?
I believe overall it was about 15 years. 15 years in construction.
So this is what it takes, right, to make sure that Southern Nevada's water supply is secure. So the third intake, it is underneath us. We're showing you a bunch of video of the construction of that third intake and how tunnels were bored, again, underneath the lake through bedrock. We have an amazing documentary that is on our YouTube channel about the third intake that you can watch. It's 30 minutes long that gives you the whole spiel on how that thing was constructed. And it really is an engineering marvel. At the time, Buck, and I don't know if you know this, but has anything comparable been built to what we have underneath us with the third intake?
No, they faced tremendous challenges to install this.
Yeah, and I think there was a time where they started one direction, that tube got filled with water. Can you recall that?
Yeah, they initially started the boring machine in a direction. They had water intrusion, some rocket fractures, and they basically had to re-aim the boring machine and take a little bit of a longer route, but through more stable rock.
The third intake, you can't see. Again, about 180 feet below where we're at. But there's another engineering marvel that you can see if you were to make a trip out to Hoover Dam. That's, of course, well, the dam itself, I guess, is an engineering marvel. But the bridge also that was newly constructed after 9/11. Is there a comparison, Buck, that we can make between that engineering marvel, building that structure across that span of distance, and what we have underneath us here?
Yeah, so I think you face different challenges when you do a bridge versus a tunnel, especially a tunnel underwater. With the bridge, you've got elevation and you're working above people. With this, you're directly under the lake. So the danger aspect of working below grade and the pressures that you experience, just the atmospheric pressure, are so great that a lot of safety factors have to come into play.
Now, we're going to talk about a concept called dead pool, if you're not familiar with that. Again, that's a really bad scenario, but let's take a ride over to our first intake, and it'll give you some perspective of why the third intake was really necessary. So we've gone from the middle of the lake, 2.5 miles to the edge of the lake, but we made it to intake 1. Buck, tell us about intake 1, and it's a bad thing that we're seeing it basically at the surface of the lake, right?
Yes, it's not a good thing. The intake 1 was put in the early 70s. It's at elevation 1055. Right now the lake today is at 1061, so we're only about 6 foot above the intake elevation of this station itself.
Yeah, and can it operate at that level? Is it still operating right now?
So it's operating right now. We will slowly start to transition away from this and rely more on L3PS for our main intake.
Okay, so intake 1, 2022, we're showing you footage of it being exposed, right? Again, the lake level got so low around elevation 1040 that intake came out. We saw it. It's a scary sight, don't get us wrong. Now, intake 2, tell us about intake 2.
Intake 2 was installed in the mid-90s, and it's at elevation 1,000, so it's 55 feet below this current intake. So if you think about the lake as a martini glass, our first 2 intake straws are at the edge of the glass. So as you drink that martini and the liquid gets down below those 2 straws, there's still quite a bit of drink left in the glass. Our third intake is in the very bottom, so you get every drop.
And who would put a straw on the side? Hey, we made it to Hoover Dam as part of our tour as well, and you see right above it the Pat Tillman Bridge that we were just discussing. But I want to talk about a concept that we're very familiar with, that you may have heard, but we really want to make sure you understand it and understand why Southern Nevada is secure even in a scenario where we could hit dead pool here at Hoover Dam. Buck, explain it.
So if you think of dead pool's at elevation 895. At dead pool, no water flows past Hoover Dam and downstream to any of the other communities.
The best way I can explain it is that Hoover Dam essentially becomes useless, right? It can't even generate power at that level, right? We have a power pool level at elevation 950. We're talking about below the ability of Hoover Dam to generate power. And this is at the point where essentially Lake Mead is not a lake anymore. It's like part of a river. So there's a slow trickle of water. You can't hold any water back, so there can't be any measured amount. And if this scenario were to happen, which there are, again, possibilities that it could happen, the only community with access to water here from Lake Mead is Southern Nevada. That's where the third intake comes in. And again, explain it one more time. We're talking elevation 895. Where is that third intake elevation again?
Elevation 875 is the third intake, and we're actually exploring the option of lowering that down to about 825. So we'll get an additional 40 feet of coverage over top the intake.
And if we were to hit a dead pool scenario, it would mean that no community besides Southern Nevada would have access to water from Lake Mead. We're talking about California, we're talking about Arizona, and we're talking about Mexico. None of the users downstream would be able to access the billions and trillions of gallons of water that they would normally get from Lake Mead. So in that unlikely event that happens that we're protecting ourselves against, Southern Nevada, in actually better shape than you would think based on what might be happening at Hoover Dam. Buck, did I hit it as well as I could?
You did great.
Yeah, okay. One more component to this whole thing. Of course, the water's here and the straw is here, but you got to get the water out of the lake. So we're going to go back on land to tell you about the low lake level pumping station. Very nice. Welcome to the low lake level pumping station on the banks of Lake Mead. So the other major component to secure Southern Nevada's water supply long-term is all this behind me, and it's all this around me. It is the low lake level pumping station, or what we call L3PS. So now on dry land, Buck, tell us about this facility and how it works with the third intake.
Sure. If you can think about the intake as a 3-mile straw, the low lake level pumping station is the horsepower used to draw that water in and up and push it to our treatment plants.
Yeah, and water's heavy, in case you didn't know. Try to carry a 5-gallon jug of water anywhere and you'll feel how heavy it is. Moving water is a really tough job here. So we have how many pumps here? It's a lot of pumps, and you can't see the lake behind us, but the lake is just behind us, but it takes a lot of power. It takes a lot of energy. Explain the details of the infrastructure we have here.
Sure, so we have 22 low lift pumps and 12 high lift pumps. The 22 low lift pumps are 3,300 horsepower each, and they move the water basically from the lake to the closest treatment plant, which is Alfred Merritt Smith. The 12 high lift pumps move the water from the lake to the furthest water treatment plant, which is River Mountains, and those pumps are actually 5,500 horsepower.
Yeah, beefy. Is that a good word? I think beefy's a good word.
Beefy's a great word.
Construction of this took 4 years between 2016 and 2020, on time, under budget. What can you tell us about these pumps, the first of its kind in the world, right? I mean, we're talking about where the essentially the third intake is. It's about 500 feet below us.
Correct.
So can you give us any more detail on how this facility really was the first of its kind? It still probably is.
Yeah, it was approached as two separate projects, a below earth project and an above ground project, and those two had to marry together to completion.
34 pumps, and where the lake is at, in case you're familiar with the Las Vegas Valley, I know if you've ever had to travel to Lake Mead, whether it's for recreation or if you're a tourist here and you drove out to the lake, you know it's a little bit of a drive. So we're talking about, again, moving water dozens of miles, and it's about 1,000 feet of elevation. Energy is key. Again, horsepower is key. What context can you give about the distance this water has to move?
So if you can think about it as a house is a two-story home. You can't go from the first floor to the second floor without steps. So our pump stations are virtually the steps that create the lift to push that water up the mountain and down into the valley.
This is why I have a single-story house. Yeah,
I do as well.
And we're at the Las Vegas Valley Water District and the Water Authority. We're actually the #1 user of energy in Southern Nevada. Again, so this is all stuff that is behind the scenes for you. The low lake level pumping station not running full-time right now. It's obviously here if we need it, but it uses more energy than intake 1 and intake 2. Again, I think we've explained it enough throughout, but because those are at higher elevations, a little bit less power to use?
Yes, the low lake level pump station does use more power to move water. So whenever possible, we try to use one of the other two intake pump stations. Eventually, the water at the lake will drop that 6 feet. We won't be able to use pump station 1 anymore, and this will be our primary pump station for that.
Speaking of power, there's actually a substation here located on site at L3PS. Multiple power sources to make sure that this can draw water from the lake. Explain that.
That's correct. With this maybe someday becoming our primary source of water from the lake and our only source, SNWA has brought 3 separate circuits of utility power into this substation. So if we lose a circuit, we can easily switch over to a second circuit and power the entire station.
Redundancy is something that we talk about a lot with our organization, and all you see at the end is that when you turn that faucet, when you turn on the shower, the water comes out. This is all stuff that is behind the scenes that you don't get to see on a daily basis, but know it exists, know it is here, it is working for you, it is working to protect our water supply. People like Buck and the hundreds of employees of the Water District and the Southern Nevada Water Authority make this happen so that your water supply is secure for the long-term future, even in spite of what you may see happening at Lake Mead. Creating a beautiful desert landscape in Las Vegas is not the impossible task many believe it can be.
So it was nice when we moved in, it was already landscaped, but for us it just never was quite functional.
Many Vegas homeowners can empathize with the Zelke family. Their outdoor living space just wasn't quite right when they moved into their current home. Among the human priorities, Duke and Leo also absolutely need room.
We're just looking for a little more space where they can run around and be dogs, right? Throw the ball around to them and they can chase it, which right now we don't really have that, especially with this fireplace being in the way.
So the Zelkis recently began a backyard renovation with the goal of doing it right for the sake of the dogs and maximizing their budget.
So maybe you kind of come to the table with a wish list, and that's what we did. We knew the things that were like must-have for us.
There are steps to create a functional landscape the right way, the right design with the right plants and trees that will provide a beautiful aesthetic and atmosphere while staying water smart.
There's always something that can be done within your means and your availability. I think the most important thing is speaking with the homeowner and figuring out what their needs are and what exactly they're looking for, and to not look at the project as a puzzle and rather look at it as a whole.
To begin, hiring a water-smart landscaper is a great idea to smooth the design process that many can find overwhelming. We recommend multiple bids, which the Zelkis wisely received before deciding on Centerpoint Landscaping, one of dozens of certified water-smart landscapers that take courses in water efficiency and are approved by the Southern Nevada Water Authority.
So I'll be out meeting with you throughout the whole process, going through every single detail, all the plants, your rock selection, pavers, making sure that we're really getting all the details in order before construction starts.
When it comes to creating the right design, 3D renderings are now standard practice for landscape contractors who can map out anything you may want to add, from fire pits and trees, and look, there's Duke and Leo. It truly gives a glimpse of what's to come and allows you to play with the space.
I lay out everything, pretty much putting together all your asks, and we collaborate. We'll look at the design, we'll make changes, adjustments, and make sure that we're really honing in on what you're looking for.
Oh, yeah. I like
So
these.
if you wanted something that's going to be evergreen, that gives you some flowers, it's not a messy plant at all.
Next, picking beautiful plants and trees is where the skeptics begin grumbling. Many believe having a colorful backyard is impossible in our desert, especially without traditional grass or a lot of water. It's not true. The Zelkis say artificial turf has worked out very well for Duke and Leo, and Star Nursery stocks hundreds of plants on SNWA's approved plant list, a comprehensive guide that's tailored for our climate for anyone looking to change or add to their landscape.
There's a lot to pick from. Where do I start?
I mean, there is lots to look at. We're going to look at pretty much everything I recommend, and then from there, if you want to do some alternatives, we can look at some other options as well.
A mature landscape does take time to build, but opting for the largest size available of the plant or tree you want will trade a little more cost to collapse time.
When they think water smart, they always think cactuses, just barren landscape, and that doesn't need to be the case. You can really find some plants that are going to be nice, full, and lush with our climate by providing shade trees and getting some other plants that sit below it that might otherwise not do well in full sun, and really creating an environment that helps other plants thrive.
One last item you must assess is the condition of your irrigation system. Invest in any repairs or upgrades now to avoid a nightmare many experience and could cost even more. Following the playbook the Zelkis did, we'll end with the reward of a refreshed space tailored to your needs and desires, adding shade and color and knowing you're staying water smart. Discover our list of approved water smart landscapers and our plant list at snwa.com. Lake Mead remains about 30% full and is still under a Tier 1 federal water shortage declaration. This means mandatory cuts to our water supply. However, these are cuts that we can handle because of your conservation. While Lake Mead is a shared resource between 3 states and Mexico, your diligent conservation, combined with the Southern Nevada Water Authority's infrastructure we showed you earlier in the show, does in fact ensure a reliable water supply in the midst of a lot of uncertainty. And while building a pipeline from the Mississippi River isn't feasible for a variety of reasons, SNWA will continue to find ways and do everything it can to keep as much water in Lake Mead as possible. Thanks for watching Vegas Valley H2O, and thank you for staying water smart.